welcome. I think we're going to get started right now, and first it's probably best just to tell you what to expect in terms of the dynamics. Right now, we'd like you to ensure that your computer microphone is on and the volume is turned up. But just so you know, we have muted all the participants just to make sure that the audio is quite clear for everybody. And so if you want to speak at any time, raise your hand, and hopefully we'll notice that you've raised your hand. If not, and we don't notice you, then send a question in as well. This is relatively new technology, so there might be still some blips. Raise your hand, and then we'll unmute you so you can speak. And then you can just ask your questions. And please do feel that you can ask them at any time, but it might be easier to do it during the pauses when we're looking for your hand. For those of you who don't have a microphone, because we are getting people from all over the world, if you don't have a microphone, just write in your question in the questions box. We will then read out your question at the appropriate time. Just so you know, all the planned speakers will appear on the video. You will not, though, just because the video slows us down quite a bit. So I hope that those instructions are clear. And the only other thing I want to say is that the person who's been behind all of the emails is Chelsea Hicks, and I feel obliged to at least let her wave hello. And so this webinar would not have happened if it weren't for her. So I get all the glory. She does all the work. So let me just, I thought I'd start with just some basics around what we hope to accomplish and then move into the first presentation right away. Okay, that's an opening slide. Actually, one more thing that I just want to say in terms of how this webinar might be different from other webinars that you've participated in is that we're really hoping that it's not passive, that we're building a community. And so I can see everybody's name up here, and I recognize some names. It's so wonderful to see you all. But let's try to really engage in a dialogue because we've got some real experts online right now. So it's embedding sustainability in the core business curriculum, and let me just give you some background as to how we got here. In April 2012, we had a centers meeting, so to speak, in our little London, Ontario. 60 centers were represented, and it was really an opportunity to get the community of center leaders together so that we can really improve capacity. I think that there is a growing trend towards sustainability centers, as you all represent. And we all have some shared interests, and if we work together, we can actually build capacity. So, and that was in April 2012. In July 2012, we built the Sustainability Centers Community online platform. And the purpose of that is that every community, or sorry, every center will then be able to have a profile that we can search, and that will help to build that community. But it's still quite passive, and we felt the next natural step was to then engage in some webinars. And the slides seem to have hung. So let's see if we can make them go. Ah, there we go. That's a good thing we have Chelsea here. We decided to meet for our first webinar in June 2013. Well, actually, the first webinar was about 2 months ago, and it was on the research practice bridge. And then we've just had our present webinar, which is our second. And we will continue to do these until we're hoping to have another on-site meeting in spring 2014. So get all the sustainability centers together in person, and there's even more than there were before, and really learn from each other. So that's where we are right now. I will tell you a little bit more about next steps later, but you didn't come to hear me. You came to listen to the speakers, but before we do that, I thought we'd have a community building activity and have you all raise your hand right now. So just so we get to practice raising hands. So I see Rita, Dennis, Claudia, Christine, Barb, Allison. Donna, we're still waiting for you, Ellen, Josie, Kate, Liliana. Let's see if you can all raise your hands. Melissa, Peter, we're still waiting. You see? Okay. It's like a classroom performance here, getting the real teaching aspect. Okay. So most of your hands are raised. I'm going to now get unraise all your hands, if that's the phrase. Oh, Dennis, just saw yours. Okay, we're going to start the webinar now, and if I could get Jason J to put his webcam on. I have
Hi.
unmuted Jason, and I'm going to introduce him briefly. I've known Jason now for a little while, and he is the rock star at MIT. So he's oh, I gotta advance the slide. I apologize, this is a little too stimulation for me. Oh, first of all, actually, I should tell you about the three speakers, and then I'll introduce Jason. So we have Jason J from MIT, Kai Hawkers from the Copenhagen Business School, and Katrin Muff from the Business School at Lausanne. Okay, so I introduce Jason first. Jason is the director of the MIT Sloan Initiative for Sustainable Business and Society. He has introduced a number of initiatives in the curriculum, including embedding sustainability in its new courses and creating some new courses, as well as starting up an interdisciplinary certificate. So, Jason, fire away. We will advance the slides for you, so just let us know when to advance. And I'm going to turn off my webcam.
Great. Great. Thank you, Tima. I appreciate it. So I don't want to take credit where it's not due. I actually joined this role as the director of our sustainability initiative in 2010. It got started in 2006-07 by a group of senior faculty here at MIT Sloan, and a few of the things that are in place were in place when I got here, and then some of the things I've gotten going. So I'll share a little bit about the spectrum of activities we have going here at the Sloan School and how we've tried to advance sustainability in the culture and the curriculum here. So you can advance the slide. The origins here, just advance through all the animation on this slide. There should be 4 or 5 different things until you see the numbers popping up. Great, perfect. So as I said, there were 3 senior faculty at MIT Sloan who had a sort of water cooler passion or interest in sustainability in the 2006-07 timeframe, and they got a sustainability initiative off the ground. I was here as a doctoral student, as a PhD student, starting in 2005. And so I was helping getting some of these things going, helping to mobilize MBA students to take the courses and to create one of the new action learning courses and so on. So I had been involved with it along the sidelines, and then in 2010 took on this leadership role. And essentially what had grown over time was this assembly of different activities. They launched a course called S-Lab, which I'll be talking about, which is a sort of flagship elective course in sustainability. They launched a speaker series, and then right before I started, they were getting started with a sustainability certificate program and just in the early stages of designing and launching it. And so there was this kind of foment of all these different kinds of activities with the sustainability initiative. And what I've really tried to do over the past couple of years is, you can advance to the next slide, is to kind of coordinate a little bit. One more. This one, yeah, great. Is to sort of coalesce these activities into sort of a theory of change and a theory of engagement for students at MIT Sloan in topics of sustainability. So there's sort of this outer circle, which is the core plus exposure. And when I say core plus, what I mean by that is at MIT Sloan, we actually have a 1-semester core. So all the required courses for the MBA students happen in their first year fall. And then the other 3 semesters of the MBA program are all electives. So that actually really importantly shapes what we do here. Our curriculum is a bit more elective centered than it might be at schools where there's a full year of core required courses. The other thing that I want to keep in mind about the MIT context is that there are a number of different programs here. So we have the MBA program. We also have a one-year mid-career Sloan Fellows program. There are two different dual degree programs with engineering focused on kind of operations and system design. There is a MSMS program for international MBA students, an executive MBA program that meets on weekends, and a master's in finance program. So what we've tried to do is to create a set of activities that can reach this diverse constituency. And so when I say core plus, what I mean is that there is literally a required core class that has some sustainability content in it. It's a data models and decisions kind of managerial statistics class where we use a case that we developed on about energy efficiency and electric utility to teach linear programming. But there are other courses that are very commonly taken electives that are sort of like an extension of the core. So Introduction to Operations is a big course lots of people take. Introduction to Strategy, not required, a lot of people take it. Management of Services, sort of a service operations class, lots of people take that. Those courses all have sustainability cases and content and themes woven throughout. So that core plus exposure, which I also include sort of orientation activities and other sort of school-wide activities, give everyone who comes through MIT Sloan some exposure to thinking about issues of sustainability. At least that's the aspiration. The next level down, the next sort of circle is this idea of a salon and the speaker series. And so we have the speaker series has been a monthly event series where we bring in prominent outside speakers on sustainability topics, and then we're creating a weekly lunch series that we are calling the salon. We might just call it the lunch series. That gives people sort of a way to dip in, get a free lunch, have a simple engagement, but go a little bit deeper and be exposed to the content. In particular, we try to use those kinds of opportunities to, in a sense, market the elective courses and invite people to go deeper. Some students go even deeper with the clubs. Student clubs are really active here at Sloan, and that's another key piece of the puzzle because there's an energy club, a food club, a water club, a social impact club, and an international development club, all of whom are run their own events around sustainability topics and carry out study tours and other kind of quasi-curricular activities. The courses are, when I have courses here, I predominantly mean the elective courses that are dedicated sustainability classes. And SLab is sort of our flagship course, and I'll say more about that. And then the certificate is what happens when you go deep and you take 6 courses in sustainability. And I'll say a little bit about in a bit about what the requirements are for the certificate. And then that innermost circle is sustainability at Sloan, which is this group that we get together about once a month, which is actually senior administrators from around the school, so the heads of the MBA program and the career development office and student life and admissions, together with some of the students who really want to take a hand in leading the initiative with a couple of the faculty, and we sort of get together as a advisory or steering group in a sense for the work that I and my team get done. So this is sort of the shape of our community, and if you advance one step in the animation, Tima, the idea is that we're trying to have kind of increasing mutual contribution as you go towards the center, like students sort of stepping up and becoming leaders in the community, as while they're also getting more from us in terms of mentorship and guidance and learning. So can you move to the next slide? So I wanted to give a couple of examples of how we've gotten the sustainability content into those core plus classes, since that's sort of an emphasis of this webinar. I mentioned that there's one course that is actually required for all the MBA students called Data Models and Decisions. It's sort of an operations research and managerial statistics class, very MIT. And there's a case in there, the Vermont City Electric case. The idea is that it teaches a topic that the DMD professors wanted to be teaching anyway, which was mixed integer optimization. It's a sort of kind of linear programming. And the context or the way that it's taught, the material that's used to teach it, is a an electric utility trying to decide how much to invest in energy efficiency and demand side management, and also sort of trying to optimize the carbon emissions and the costs, so that you can add some complexity to the optimization. And the way that that came about, the social process through which that came about, was that these what we've seen is that for these big courses, there's often a course head who's a senior faculty who oversees the course as a whole, and then there'll be multiple different instructors or junior faculty, usually, who teach sections of that class. So for DMD, Rob Freund is a operations research professor here. He was the course head for DMD, and he's sympathetic to sustainability. And so we sort of found that opening. John Sturman is one of the key senior faculty who helped launch the sustainability initiative here. He's in the system dynamics area. John essentially went sort of, Rob approached John and said, hey, maybe we could do something in sustainability in this course, but I'm not sure what to do. And John and he sort of brainstormed and came up with this idea of using this kind of energy efficiency context to study mixed integer optimization. And Rob hired a student RA, John Potter, who was someone who would have gotten the sustainability certificate if it existed at that time. He was a really active type of student, to actually write the case. And so there was, with input from both of them. So there was actual case writing and development here, collaborative between sort of the disciplinary faculty and the sustainability faculty, and a student. And now that case is part of the DMD course every MBA student takes. The interesting thing that we've heard recently is that many students that we talk to who are interested in sustainability and who say, hey, there should be more sustainability in the core, we say, well, what about Vermont City Electric? And they literally don't remember that they did the case. And the reason is that we've seen that the degree to which the sustainability content of the case is emphasized is hugely dependent on the particular professor that's teaching it. So if Rob Freund is teaching it and he cares about sustainability and is a little bit knowledgeable about it and feels comfortable talking about energy efficiency in the class, then he'll teach the mixed integer optimization, but he'll also talk a bit about the context. Where some of the other junior faculty who are operations research people, they're just going to teach that technique, and the wrapper around it, the conceptual wrapper around it that has the sustainability piece, kind of gets sidelined. So we've actually just realized from getting this feedback from our students that we need to do something like a little energy efficiency 101 refresher for these junior faculty in some format, so that they feel a little bit more comfortable bringing that context of the case into the classroom discussion around it. And I think the message here is that even once you get a case into the core, so to speak, your job's not done, because you got to keep maintaining the emphasis on the topic. And in particular, you've got to recognize that faculty who are in these other disciplines aren't necessarily knowledgeable about greenhouse gases and carbon accounting and so on. And so they might need a little bit of extra training. And the other example that I wanted to give to sort of capture the social process here is an introduction to operations course, which many Sloan students take. And there, what happened was I had a student named Sarah Myers, very passionate about sustainability, also loved operations. And she took Intro to Ops, and she approached the senior faculty who was the course head for Intro to Ops and said, hey, Retzef, this course is great, and I'm taking sustainability class at the same time, and it really seems like there's so much that operations has to say about sustainability. I think we'd get even more energy and excitement about this course if we had sustainability content in it. And so so Retzef was sort of thinking about these issues because of a student activist in a sense, but also because there was a junior faculty who was teaching one of the sections of Intro to Ops named Karen Zhang, who herself was starting to do research in sustainability. And I think it's important to know a little bit about the different academic subfields within management and how how advanced sustainability is as a topic in those fields. And in operations, it's moved forward enough that 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 we have professors who are doing research in this area. And so Karen also became an advocate for doing something, and she did the legwork of looking through cases and figuring out what would be a good fit. And they decided to use this European recycling platform case, which is, I believe it's the Harvard Business School case, that allows you to teach reverse logistics. It allows you to teach some of these more complex supply chain dynamics that happen in a recycling platform or end of life solution. And then they use that case to sort of also signal a broader theme of sustainability throughout the Introduction to Operations course. So those are two examples of how it's happened here at Sloan. Again, sort of this mix of students, sustainability interested faculty, and disciplinary faculty getting to make this happen. Advance to the next slide. The elective course, S-Lab, which I mentioned, is another really key part of the piece of the puzzle, and I'd be happy to share the syllabus for this. Basically, the way this course works is it's a spring semester elective. It's in two parts. The first half is cases, simulations, lectures, introduction to sustainability issues, and business strategies for tackling them. And then in the second half of the course in the spring, the students work on projects with real companies, real organizations, and apply what they've learned. And during that second half of the class, they're still coming into the classroom for teaching, and the teaching is about analytic tools that are useful in their project. So they get kind of an introduction to life cycle analysis, to analysis for making the financial business case for a sustainability investment, for stakeholder analysis, for evaluating consumer interest and willingness to pay for sustainability, and other some of these other analytic tools that are useful in the context of the project. So that course, that S-Lab course, is sort of our flagship elective in sustainability. It's team taught by John Sturman, Matt Amangwal, and myself. And over the years, we've cycled through a number of different cases, and we've actually developed a fair amount of material for this course, all of which is available for free on the web. And so one thing I just wanted to say for all the instructors here is that, and others, is that the MIT Sloan Learning Edge site, which is here on the slide, if you Google that, you'll find a website where we give away cases, simulations, and other teaching tools. So that's sort of the open source MIT model. You have to register as an instructor to download some of the materials, but it's free to do so. And so you can see the kind of materials that we've developed for this course. And if you go to the next slide, it just shows the kinds of companies that we've worked. These are the last 2 years worth of companies that we've worked with through the S-Lab course. So a lot of my job as the director of the sustainability initiative is to bring these companies to the table, to get them so applying for the S-Lab project process, and to steward that whole aspect of the course. As well as to kind of create that spectrum of student engagement to get people in the door for this course. And then once they take this class, that becomes usually a hook for them to pursue the certificate more deeply. So this is sort of the first course that people do, at least MBA students do, when they're pursuing our sustainability certificate. The last thing I'll also just say is the sustainability certificate itself. The requirements for that are that you have to take this S-Lab course, you have to take System Dynamics, which is an analytic course that is all about thinking in systems and using a modeling methodology for that, because that's a big part of how MIT defines sustainability. And then you take 3 electives from a list that is curated from across the university. So you take classes in urban studies and engineering and so on, as well as in management. And then there's a capstone course that they use to conclude the program and to cement the community that's built through the certificate. And in that capstone course, they have to write a paper about the company or industry that they're going to go work in and how they see sustainability issues showing up in that context, so that they can kind of hit the ground running as leaders and innovators for sustainability when they graduate. So that's sort of my overview of the MIT program, and I'm happy to answer any questions to go into further detail. We have a few sort of backup slides, but I'm also conscious that I've probably taken enough time from our webinar.
But we could always listen more to you more, Jason. Great ideas, and I'll tell you, the salon idea. I think that one I'm going to walk away with for sure. And another key learning though is the importance of junior faculty and getting them involved because they stay with you then for a long time, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
so I've got Kai, and we're just going to, Jason, you can turn off your webcam. We're going to mute you for now. We'll introduce Kai.
Hello,
Hi,
Pritima. Hello,
good to
everybody.
see you again. Uh, I knew Kai when he was just a pup, and that just says how old I am too. um, so Kai is at the Copenhagen Business School, and he's the academic director of Responsible Management Education. I think what's really cool about what he's going to talk about is how he's managed to elevate sustainability, make it explicit within the curriculum. And I think Jason said that that was one of the challenges, at least at the outset. So it's a natural next person to speak to. So Kai, I'm going to let you run with that and see anything more. Everything more will come out in the presentation. So I'm going to mute myself and turn off my webcam. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Tima. Right. So, how we have approached sustainability in our teaching is basically a story that can be summarized in 3 words, and that's Aspen, Aspen, Aspen. So it all started with the Aspen ranking. When I got hired here 7 years ago, our president at the time said, "Kai, why are we not on this ranking? We should be there." And I said, "That's easy. You just fill in the survey and you're on the ranking, right?" From there on, then we realized, well, we weren't doing as well as we had hoped. So there was a certain competitive edge to it. And that's where my work with the MBA program has started. Now, let me perhaps start with the challenge rather than the results. The first approach was a very clear no. So we frontally went to the program and said, look, guys, look at other programs. You should have a core. You should have more electives. And anyway, you need to integrate this more. And the program was very much, ooh, no, 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 Kai. Well, already we are doing it. And if we do any more of it, we're going to drive away all those international MBA students who come here for the high quality work that we're doing, and really sustainability is not why they come here. That we use then as an invitation to say, well, if you say you're already doing it, would it be okay to look at what you are doing? We talked to all the faculty, went to every faculty. First of all, we asked them to have a look at their syllabus to see whether anything was in the syllabi. We then met with each professor and talked about how do you cover responsibility, sustainability in there. And we basically came with the assumption you probably are already doing it, right? Which worked very well. A lot of our professors actually said, yes, I'm doing it. I do have a case here, or I have a reading there. And what Jason mentioned, the fact that students don't always remember the material, I think that was quite similar here. That people were using the material, but they were not making it very explicit. So what we then tried to do is to say, look, can we perhaps, and it was always useful to hint at the existence of something such as the Aspen ranking. Could we perhaps make more explicit what you are doing? You're saying this is whatever, this is the IKEA case. Why don't you mention that this is a case about sustainable supply chain management? Yeah, I guess we could do that. And why don't you write this perhaps in the course description? And if we felt that we were actually getting to a good discussion, we might also say, why don't you include it in the learning objectives? Perhaps as a side point, perhaps not as the main one. This usually went well, and then led to these situations at the end of the discussions where then basically if we had left, probably in 95% of the cases, not much would have happened. And we could see the stress on the face of the professor. Oh my God, now I need to remember all we talked about. It changed my syllabus. So the second step is that we very sweetly offered, look, if you don't mind, we'll take your syllabus, track changes, and just write in what we've just talked about. And you can accept or reject these things. And that also was something that was very welcome. We usually got into, I would say, like more than half of the things we suggested were really taken up by our colleagues. The next thing we did in these meetings was to say, well, is there anything you need? And here we come to resources, and Jason, you have talked about this as well. You need to put some resources in place for faculty to develop this material. That also worked well. So as soon as we said, look, is there a topic you would like to teach, but you simply don't have the time to develop the material, or you don't know the cases, then we are very happy to help you. And actually, Marie, who's here with me, she's responsible for continuing this program, helping professors across CBS to develop material on topics related to sustainability or responsibility, giving them access to students, researchers, and so on. And then very much towards the end, we have dared to make very careful suggestions. And I think this is a learning that is important when you implement this into a program that has not yet said this is going to be one of our big flagships. You've got to be very, very careful with that. So we were enormously polite and slow going on these things to say, well, you know, wouldn't you mind perhaps to take this or that in? If we were too direct, we often got a brush off, because professors told us, look, we're academics, there's academic freedom, you cannot tell us what to do just because you want to get in some ranking we don't care about. But what did work often was to say, and the argument often was the students aren't interested, the students do not want to talk about this. So I said, like, why don't you do this as an optional reading? Right? You have 4 readings or 3 readings, put an additional optional reading in there. If none of the students talks about this, you leave it out. And that was quite well. Actually, we of course do have a net impact chapter here. We have some quite active students who, as soon as they learned this, use that as a very active lever to bring the topic into a number of classes. And there were some readings which stayed optional forever, and in some cases were also taken out because it didn't click with the students. Now, this process was basically as far as I'd hoped this would go, but it then started to take on an initiative of its own. First of all, we have moved from 0 to 1 to 2 electives now in the program. Here again, what has helped is to make funding available. So we basically have a deficit guarantee, because again, the program was worried, well, what happens if not enough students show up? It's like, well, should that be the case, at the Office of Responsible Management Education, we are going to cover whatever shortfall there is. And indeed, the first 2 years, we did have that problem. This year, I'm happy to report both of our electives were well over the threshold, and things are working fine. And in addition, we have been pushing for a core course. And now the head of the MBA program, who was running the program when I started this, told me very clearly, Kai, there will never, as long as I'm the MBA dean, there's never going to be a core course in this area. And just before he handed this over to the next person, he actually made, as one of his last acts, the decision to open this as a core course. It was slightly different presented. It's actually a year-long course, or rather 5-6 months long. It goes over several periods, where we are commenting on the readings in the core courses. So we might have a case on HR and responsibility, a case on green marketing, and another case on using the balanced scorecard, and to include sustainability issues. So at the end of the day, actually, the program has very much taken this into account. It has also become more part of the outside communication. The program has at some point realized that a lot of students were kind of asking about this, and there was no material. So now information material is there, which again has a feedback loop that more students are coming here, more students who are specifically interested in this sustainability angle. Although we are very clear on the fact that we do not want to brand this as a sustainability MBA. So that is clear, and I'm also quite happy with it. But it isn't mainstream MBA, but it has a very strong component on sustainability. Now, looking at challenges, I think there were 2 challenges in here. One was to persuade the top management, and here really it helped a lot to be able to point towards something such as an outside ranking. These topics are important. Presentation in the world helps. And the second challenge was the colleagues. And here I kind of like, if I were to summarize the advice I would give there is, you do it, and you do it. Meaning you do it is we assume that they are already doing it. The way we have started this conversation is we know you do this. Come on, you're in Scandinavia. There's so much sustainability stuff going on here. I'm sure there must be a component in there, which gave them a much more relaxed discussion to talk about and say, yeah, this is what I am doing. We also have made it very clear that it's their decision. We have, although in a way we could have pointed to the dean or the president, we have always said, look, this is your decision. If this doesn't fit with what you do not have to do this. And there are a couple of professors who simply said, no way, I do not have the time in the program to add anything at all. And the last thing you do it was that you do need to be very flexible in the terminology, the it that you use here. For one professor, sustainability is a red flag. Another one doesn't like responsibility. Somebody else is happy to talk about climate change, but not about green management. So what we've basically been doing at the beginning of these meetings is to just download a little bit. What is the vocabulary that person feels comfortable with? What are the stereotypes they have to get out of their systems? So there are certain disciplines, disciplinary colleagues who, of course, have certain ideas about what's all wrong with CSR sustainability. We've given them a lot of time to talk about this and have then basically together with them constructed what it means in this course. That also means that we do not have an overarching definition of sustainability. Rather, what we say is there's a diversity of concepts and constructs here, and we want to make that explicit so that the students understand how different disciplines use these terms differently, reassuring that each faculty can take their approach towards the topic. And otherwise, you need a long breath. Let me see, 2013, I came here in 2005, so it's 8 years that this has been going on. And I must say I'm quite happy with where we are with the MBA program now. We'll probably continue this, but it's only since this year that we have our core course. And processes like these take obviously a long time. We're just now starting into rolling this out into our other programs. We have a bachelor, we have a master program. Just to give you an idea of the numbers we're talking about here, our MBA program is very small. We have 48 students, and all the rest of the school is very big. There are 18,000 students in total. So we're now starting with 17 bachelor programs where we do the same process. We afterwards look at doing the same thing with 35 master programs. And that does take a lot of energy and resources. But it also leads to a process of the whole school changing around this. So this we call it curriculum development, brings in a lot of professors. It touches everybody a little bit, and thereby starts a narrative about what does it mean to be a responsible management educator or to talk about sustainability in the classroom. And finally, since Jason mentioned the certificate, and I think you also mentioned the online programs you have available, we do have a minor program here on social entrepreneurship, another on sustainability. And in our clean tech course, we actually use the Clean Start simulation from MIT, which I can very much recommend. Excellent stuff. Fish banks and the other ones I've heard are also very good for teaching. So, having said that, Tima, any comments or questions at this point?
That's super, Kai. I think that, oh, I'm going to just start my webcam again. Whoops, there we go. Thanks for that. And I think that really what it was really nice hearing from you is the journey that it took. And also, because sustainability is almost everything, that in a way it's to your benefit, but then it also presents its own challenges. So I appreciate that. Especially in Denmark, we think everything is sustainable. So it's really hard to draw the boundaries. So I'm going to move on to Katrine, but before I do that, and I'm going to turn off your webcam, Kai, and I'm going to mute you. So actually, you got perfect. So before we go to Katrina, I just had a couple of questions that I wanted to share with you. One is, are the slides available? And that's from Jason's slideshow, obviously. And we'll make that available on our website as well as recordings of the presentations. And so you can watch them over and over again if you want. or you can send your colleagues to them as well. I also had and that question came from Barb Edwards and Jose Poole. And then Veronique asked if how many people were attending the webinar and from where did they come. And so just so you know, we have 30 people signed on right now, and they're from Canada, of course, the US, and then several from Europe, including Switzerland, Denmark, the UK, Austria, and Italy. So it's got quite um, it's got quite a broad range. So I'm going to move on to Katrine. She'll have 8 or so minutes to talk, and that will give us about 10 minutes for the Q&A. So Katrine, can you turn on your webcam? And I've just unmuted you, and I'm going to turn off my webcam and mute myself. Okay, it's all yours, about 8 minutes.
All right, let me try and be quick. First of all, thanks for offering this opportunity, and thanks also for the great introductions of Jason and Kay. Great work there. So good to share among ourselves what we're doing. So really appreciate that. Rather than talking about what we do at BSL, what I'd like to talk about is a little bit of what we're doing on a bigger perspective. Tima, what you can do is just kind of always put the entire slide on. So feel free to just kind of. That's going to help me save time as I run through the 8 minutes. I'm going to talk about 50+20, a project that some of you are familiar with, that we've developed for the Rio conference last year, a radical new vision for management education that we brought basically a agenda to Rio together with a bunch of films and some action that we actually brought to Rio with benches and so forth. And we had actually a book, this is my 2 seconds of advertisement, just coming out 3 days ago that describes the vision in more detail. As we've done that, and I think you can just kind of skip over the next slide to go to slide 3. I'm not going to talk about 50+20 at all. As we developed the vision, one of the things that we recognized very quickly is that in order to develop the kinds of leaders that we were looking for in order to create the society and therefore business that becomes sustainable, to get to the kind of society that we wanted to, we really were looking for developing a new kind of a mindset at the 3 levels, from the individual, institution, and the global perspective. We call this kind of the I, we, and all of us, with 3 different objectives at these 3 levels. At the individual school level, looking really at figuring out how we can develop leaders that can deal with the challenges that we are embracing or that we are facing right now, how they can go forward with that. On the institutional level, how do we develop globally responsible leaders, and how can we ensure on the societal level that we connect the purpose of business back to society. And if we go to the next slide, what we ended up in terms of 50+20 was a core vision where we said the purpose of management education for the future is really to provide responsible leadership for a sustainable world. And we defined 3 key roles that you may or may not see here on the slide. I'm just going to read them out quickly. Basically, we said we need to, and this is actually, as you can see, is quite normative what we've done here. We went into the future, envisioned a radically new future, and then backcasted back into what that means for us. Educating and developing globally responsible leaders, i.e. leaders that are able to embrace the challenges of the future, rather than being able to just simply manage the corporations of the 20th century, as we ended up calling it. You will also see that what the second role for business schools is, which we call enabling business organizations to serve the common good, is kind of our definition of what we believe research at an institution, business or management school should be all about. So you see here a lot of actually adding a lot of purpose to research, moving away to some degree, and of course this is related with quite some resistance, as Kay was just going into in terms of the curriculum changes at the CBS, in terms of saying, well, we do need faculty to support companies to become sustainable. And that is then very different kind of research than is done currently at business schools. I'm not saying all of it, but to some degree, some of it. And then we've added a third role to business schools that is hardly embraced at all so far. which is about engaging in the transformation of business and the economy. So here we're really looking at kind of developing the faculty as, if you want, public intellectuals, if that is a term that makes any sense, where we're looking at how can we engage together with relevant stakeholders in society around burning issues and developing solutions that are relevant. And for this, we really envisioned in the center, you see the collaboratory, a new form of a teaching, learning, and engagement model, which we call the collaboratory, where imagine that there is a space where stakeholders, students, and researchers meet to discuss burning issues, and they work together towards the solution of this. So an open space where there is basically the barriers between current faculty and the professional world would be lowered to a significant degree. If you go to the next slide, what we ended up developing, what we ended up realizing was that if we wanted to develop such a new management education for the future, one of the key levers in there would be developing relevant new faculty. Therefore having people in business schools with much broader skills and competencies than we have currently. You can probably read on the slide. We would look for both educators and researchers, both in disciplines, across disciplines, with a collaboratory, practice-oriented approach, where the collaboration across the disciplines and the different walks of life become the rule rather than the exception. If we then look at, okay, so how do we actually get to a place where we have such faculty in place, which in many places is quite far from the reality of today, where external faculty comes in from the business and the consulting world only for very specified guest lecturing or some lecturing activities, but certainly not in the research area. Research being very much separated away from teaching, with the exception of case studies, as we've seen some beautiful examples from Jason, for example, before. Now, if we go to the next slide and we look at the kinds of skills that we would need to develop, we kind of look at 3 areas of skills. One of them would be in terms of developing enabling pedagogies for the faculty, to make sure that actually our professors and our faculty are able to create the kinds of effective learning spaces that would be needed in order to accompany participants on this adventure to discover how to address these complex or wicked problems, as we may call them, that are related to sustainability issues. Future-oriented research relates to broadening the research methodology, the research capability skills of the various faculty, both incoming faculty, let's say the professionals, be it business executives or consultants who would be coming into the business schools to reflect on past experiences and digest that as case studies or small articles, or also for the existing faculty that will need some support in order to learn how they would define their research questions together with stakeholders rather than in isolation by themselves, and so forth. And the third area of skills in terms of how actually to effectively engage in community, with as you can see there, the overlapping area in the middle, dealing with the topical domains of sustainability and responsibility. When we go to the next slide, basically saying that we do need to develop skills and competencies in various areas, be it pedagogies, research, responsibility and ethics, as well as sustainability, sustainable business, with the ambition to be that we would come up with a doctoral program available for business schools worldwide to develop what we call future capable management education faculty. Now, obviously the challenge is that various schools are at very different places in terms of their own journey of transformation. Some may have already engaged in it, others are just starting, and there may be a small dozen or a couple of dozens who are really have transformed and are willing and able to go forward with radically new doctoral programs in this sense. So what we realized, if you can go to the next slide, is that we need to cater to schools with these three different needs. And what we call that, and this is borrowing from Gregory Bateson, is to actually look at where are they in terms of their change, the change process. We call this first, second, and third order change. But in terms of the first order change, we look at the ambition being to offer a large variety of individual courses that PhD or doctoral DBA students or program directors, executives and consultants could simply sign up to if they wanted to broaden their skills in one area or another. This could also be offered to existing faculty, be it mid-career or late career, where they can engage in developing themselves to broaden their skills in any of these 4 areas that we've developed before. A second order change would be for a business school that is already in the process of transforming towards becoming also more a role model and walking the talk in terms of including and embracing sustainability and responsibility, by saying you could actually offer a number of different tracks or create your own track that you would add to an existing doctoral program, be it PhD or DBA, and you can therefore build a broader based own program that you would offer. And then the third order change would include, and we've got a handful of schools around the world that are working on that, is a entirely new doctoral program that would satisfy all 4 quadrants of the identified skills and competencies that we've highlighted before. So if you go to the next slide, a visual overview of that would look like this. The yellow area representing basically saying that these would be the large number of courses that would be available. From this large number of courses, a program director can build his or her own additional track that he or she would want to build into an existing program. Basically all coming out of a newly defined global doctoral program that these few schools are currently co-developing on a global basis. The idea being that we can really offer a variety of different resources of different schools. And if you go to the last slide, and I'll be done in the next 30 seconds, is that how do we envision this, and how can we actually contact all the business schools? 50+20 is a part of the GRLI initiative that is actually has become, as you may or may not be aware of, the operational arm of both AACSB and EFMD, who have joined forces in the area of sustainability and responsibility just recently. They've actually just had their first board meeting last week in Paris, where they've decided that both governing bodies will use GRLI and therefore 50+20 as their main way to approach their member schools, and we're talking about the top 1,500 business schools around the world, in order to help them transform to embrace sustainability and responsibility. So we are actually working with AACSB and EFMD, or more specifically EQUIS. Both of them have changed their accreditation standards in the last 3 months to include quite radically responsibility, ethics, and sustainability. I don't know whether you've already seen the new standards. They will bring massive change across Europe and the US and the rest of the world in the next 3 to 5 years, as business schools will re-accredit their programs, and so they will be using they will be offering these courses to all of their schools, and we hope to be able to contribute to the momentum of the transformation at the school level. So I'll stop here. If anybody is interested to participate, this is very much an open source approach. We're not at all exclusive. There's no membership involved. This is all voluntary work that we're doing just as a bunch of dedicated people around the world who really care about this. So if any of you have any interest in knowing where we are with this doctoral program, just simply contact either me or John North. I've added his contacts at the bottom, or 50+20 that you can also find if you Google it on the website, 50+PLUS20. Feel free to contact us. We would be more than happy to include you in this process. Thank you.
So we only have a few minutes left for questions. And if you have a question, please just raise your hand and I will unmute you. And while we're waiting for hands to be raised, if you wanted to just ask questions, given the little bit of time that we have, remaining, if you just ask questions, type them in, and we'll make sure that the speakers get your questions at some point and have a way of responding to you, probably by email. So I have a question from Alison Kemper. I'm going to unmute Allison. Allison, go ahead.
It's not a question, it's really an observation. It was really useful to hear three different perspectives. Or, the indigenous development, with John Sturman at MIT, the reaction of CBS to the rankings and ratings, and finally a kind of globalized response from out of Lausanne, and I think that those three perspectives were really helpful, and thank you to everybody for coming at this from such different angles, so that the work we can do can kind of fit into a diverse movement. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison, for your comment. And unfortunately, we will only have time for one more question, and that's from Christina. So, Christina, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Jason, thank you, well, all of the speakers for sharing. One thing that stood out was the sustainability certificate that's offered at MIT. And I personally graduated from a program at UNC Kenan-Flagler, which also had a certificate. I'm just curious, any learnings that you could share as you followed up with students, alumni, employers. Are those stakeholder groups finding this valuable, and if so, in what ways? And also, did you come across any resistance when you were trying to get this as a certificate offering?
Jason, I've unmuted you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. The resistance piece, I don't think it was too significant, but that was partially because of the political positioning of the people advancing the certificate. So we had Rick Locke, who was an associate dean, John Sturman, who was a group head. I mean, so we had prominent folks who were pushing for the certificate. So there wasn't much resistance internally, I mean, other than just the persistence that it takes to get something through a bureaucracy. And so we were just sort of lucky in that sense. I think Sloan being a mission-driven business school has helped us along the way as a button to push. As for the students and the value they've gotten, it's been really mixed, actually, to be frank. Some students have said, certainly students who are career switchers, who weren't in sustainability, who came here, wanted to be in sustainability, wanted to label themselves as such and kind of signal that in the marketplace, they've found it really useful to help open doors. And in some cases, those doors are in unexpected places. So we had, for example, a student who went through the recruiting process at Cargill and Cargill hadn't been listing any sustainability related positions, but once she got into the interview process, when they found out that she had a sustainability certificate, they said, oh, well, by the way, there's this, we happen to be responsible for implementing McDonald's entire sustainability strategy, so would you like to run that? And so that worked well for her. She was very excited about that. So I think, we've also had other students say, you know what, I didn't even put it on my resume because I'm going to work for this, the London office of Bain Consulting Group, and I don't think they're very favorable to sustainability, so it might hurt me and make me be seen as a certain way, so I'm going to sort of keep that under my hat until the right moment. So I think that it depends a lot on where people are going and what the perception of sustainability is in the marketplace. And it also depends a lot on what people's prior backgrounds are coming in. There's some folks who have, rich back, they're a lead AP, they've got plenty of signaling of sustainability on their resume. They don't need yet another signal. And in fact, so they pursue the certificate just for the learning involved. They don't put it on their resume. What they really put on their resume is that now they're a crack, operations person. So it's really an individual, like each person is slightly different in terms of what that credential means to them. And I think as we we've only been doing this for a couple of years, so as we gain more experience, we're sort of refining the value proposition for students and sort of the idea of how to frame it in the marketplace. But I'm very up for hearing about what's happening at other schools as well.
That's very interesting.
And I apologize. Sorry, Christine, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just, thank you. That was interesting. And I can see it also being a slight placeholder enforcing function for keeping sustainability on the agenda internally, because you've got to satisfy X number of credits to get that certificate. So
yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true. I mean, I will say that we have no shortage of sustainability-oriented classes at Sloan or at MIT, but the certificate certainly keeps the I mean, it's part of the MBA program. It constantly has to be part of the marketing of the MBA program now, and so it does keep a certain, you know, it's a certain kind of anchor.
Thank you.
Yeah, put it in print and then you have to keep it. I
Yeah.
apologize that we've run a little bit late, and I think we're just we're still unpacking the technology. So I will assure you that the next webinars will be a little bit more timely, but I really want to thank three speakers that we had. They put a lot of effort into their slides. Alison Kemper said well that they nested very nicely with each other's comments. And I just wanted to tell you that what we have planned is probably either in the month of July or August. It's going to be 4 webinars directed at teaching in 4 different areas: operations, strategy, marketing, finance, and accounting. So I hope that you'll encourage your faculty in those areas to attend these webinars, and so we can dive deeply in the specific topics and different cases. If you know of anybody that could be helpful in those, please do send them our way. We'll be sending an exit survey that will allow you to flag any faculty that you think would be good speakers. And so I think that is the end of this webinar. I just want to thank you again for participating. Please do join our Sustainability Centers community. If you have any comments or questions, you can send them to Chelsea Hicks. So that's it for now. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.